Welcome, I am Daisy, your hostess. In this video, we continue with the reading of Norman Vincent Peale's The Power of Positive Thinking, where his main emphasis is on the importance of cultivating a mindset of optimism and confidence by genuinely expecting positive outcomes. I use the word cultivate, which is commonly used in relation to growing plants, yet, inasmuch as we are a growing organism with a mind that can focus on self development, this seems an appropriate use as we can engage in working on the best garden ever, which is our own mind and mindset. With that, we can actively prepare, nurture, and foster growth intentionally and patiently as we seek to refine some personal quality or some talent over time. This is not an overnight thing, let me tell you. Norman Vincent Peale will discuss how doubt and fear can destroy us slowly, can destroy our dreams and aspirations and our will, and he explains that our thoughts and beliefs shape our experiences. You don't have to take his word. You can literally pause for a minute and just look at your life and see how many times when you have experienced these thoughts that have dragged you down, the only way out was by changing those thoughts. And the difference is having the discipline and a follow through that helps you have a system to continually rise above those and create these new habits, right? So, if you have come to that place in your life where you know that no one is going to save you but yourself, then you are ready to access a few golden nuggets of wisdom offered in this book, which will help you focus on those best qualities so that you can attract success and happiness into your life because you deserve it. And you'll be surprised of subtle changes for the better in your life when you begin expecting the best. I do want to say, if you just found me at this video and like to access the first few chapters, please visit my book playlist. And to my family, friends, and new friend, welcome back. I now turn the page. Chapter 6. Stop Fuming and Fretting. Many people make life unnecessarily difficult for themselves by dissipating power and energy through fuming and fretting. Do you ever fume and fret? Here is a picture of yourself if you do. The word fume means to boil up, to blow off, to emit vapor, to be agitated, to be distraught, to seethe. The word fret is equally descriptive. It is reminiscent of a sick child in the night, a petulant half-cry, half-whine. It ceases only to begin again. It has an irritating, annoying, penetrating quality. To fret is a childish term, but it describes the emotional reaction of many adults. The Bible advises to fret not thyself from Psalm 37, verse 1. This is sound advice for the people of our time. We need to stop fuming and fretting and get peaceful if we are to have power to live effectively. And how do we go about doing so? A first step is to reduce your pace, or at least the tempo of your pace. We do not realize how accelerated the rate of our lives has become, or the speed at which we are driving ourselves. Many people are destroying their physical bodies by this pace. But what is even more tragic, they're tearing their minds and souls to shreds as well. It is possible for a person to live a quiet existence physically and yet maintain a high tempo emotionally. Even an invalid can live at too high a pace from that standpoint. The character of our thoughts determines pace. When the mind goes rushing on pell-mell from one feverish attitude to another, it becomes feverish, and the result is a state bordering on petulance. The pace of modern life must be reduced if we are not to suffer profoundly from its debilitating overstimulation and superexcitement. This overstimulation produces toxic poisons in the body and creates emotional illness. It produces fatigue and a sense of frustration so that we fume and fret about everything from our personal troubles to the state of the nation and the world. If the effect of this emotional disquiet is so pronounced physically, what must its effect be on that deep inner essence of that personality known as the soul? It is impossible to have peace of soul if the pace is so feverishly accelerated. God won't go that fast. He will not endeavor to keep up with you. He says, in effect, go ahead if you must with this foolish pace, and when you are worn out, I will offer my healing. But I can make your life so rich if you slow down now and live and move and have your being in me. God moves imperturbably, slowly, and with perfect organization. The only wise rate at which to live is God's rate. God gets things done, and they are done right, and He does them without hurry. He neither fumes nor frets. He is peaceful and therefore efficient. This same peace is offered to us. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you, from the book of John, chapter 14, verse 27. In a sense, this is a pathetic generation, especially in the great cities because of the effect of nervous tension, synthetic excitement, and noise. But the malady extends into the country districts also, for the airwaves transmit tension. I was amused by an old lady who, in talking about this matter, said, "Life is so daily." That remark certainly spoke volumes about the pressure, responsibilities, and tension of daily life. Its persistent, insistent demand upon us is provocative of pressure. One wonders whether this generation of Americans is not so accustomed to tension that many are in the unhappy state of not being comfortable without it. The deep quietness of woods and valleys, so well known for our forefathers, is an unaccustomed state to them. The tempo of their lives is such that, in many instances, they have an incapacity to draw upon the sources of peace and quietness which the physical world offers. One summer afternoon, my wife and I went for a long walk in the woods. We were stopping at the beautiful Lake Mohonk Mountain House, which is set in one of the finest natural parks in America, 7,500 acres of virgin mountainside, in the middle of which is a lake lying like a gem in the forest. The word Mohonk means lake in the sky. Aeons ago, some giant upheaval of the earth cast up these sheer cliffs. You come out of the deep woods onto some noble promontory and rest your eyes in great valleys set among hills, rock-ribbed and ancient as the sun. These woods, mountains, and valleys constitute what ought to be a sure retreat from every confusion of this world. On this afternoon, as we walked there, was a mixture of summer showers and sunlit hours. We were drenched and started to fret about it a bit because it took the press out of our clothes. Then we told each other that it doesn't hurt a human being to get drenched with clean rainwater, that the rain feels cool and fresh on one's face, and that you can always sit in the sun and dry yourself out. We walked under the trees and talked and then fell silent. We were listening deeply to the quietness. In a strict sense, the woods are never still. There's tremendous activity always in process, but nature makes no strident noises regardless of the vastness of its operation. Nature's sounds are quiet, harmonious. On this beautiful afternoon, nature was laying its hand on healing quietness upon us, and we could actually feel the tension being drawn off. Just as we were falling under the spell, the faint sounds of what passes for music came to us. It was nervous, high-strung music of the jittery-bug variety. Presently, through the woods came 3 young people, 2 young women and a young man, and the latter was lugging a portable radio. They were 3 young city people out for a walk in the woods, and tragically enough, were bringing their noise along with them. They were nice young folk too, for they stopped and we had a pleasant talk with them. It occurred to me to ask them to turn down that thing and listen to the music of the woods, but I didn't feel it was my business to instruct them, and finally they went on their way. We commented on the loss they were incurring, that they could pass through this peacefulness and not give ear to the music that is as old as the world, harmony and melody, the like of which man has never equaled. The song of the wind through the trees, the sweet notes of birds singing their hearts out, the whole background of the music of the spheres. This is still to be found in America, in our woods and great plains, in our valleys, in our mountain majesties, and where the ocean foams on soft shores of sand. We should avail ourselves of its healing. Remember the words of Jesus, "Come ye yourselves apart into a desert place, and rest a while," from the book of Mark chapter 6, verse 31. Even as I write these words and give you this advice, I recall instances where it has been necessary to remind myself to practice the same truth, which emphasizes that we must everlastingly discipline ourselves to quietness if we expect its benefit in our lives. One autumn day, Mrs. Peake and I took a trip into Massachusetts to see our son John at Deerfield Academy. We told him we would arrive at 11 a.m., and we pride ourselves on the good old American custom of promptness. Therefore, being a bit behind schedule, we were driving at breakneck speed through the autumnal landscape. My wife said, "Norman, did you see that radiant hillside?" "What hillside?" I asked. "It just went by on the other side," she explained. "Look at that beautiful tree." "What tree?" I was already a mile past it. "This is one of the most glorious days I've ever seen," my wife said. "How could you possibly imagine such amazing colors as these New England hillsides in October? In fact," she said, "it makes me happy inside." That remark of hers so impressed me that I stopped the car and went back a quarter of a mile to a lake backed by towering hills dressed in autumn colors. We sat and looked and meditated. God, with his genius and skill, had painted that scene in the varied colors which he alone can mix. In the still waters of the lake lay a reflected vision of his glory, for the hillside was unforgettably pictured in that mirror-like pond. For quite a while we sat without a word until finally my wife broke the silence by the only appropriate statement that one could make. "He leadeth me beside the still waters," from the book of Psalm 23, verse 2. We arrived at Deerfield at 11, but we were not tired. In fact, we were deeply refreshed. To help reduce this tension, which seems to dominate our people everywhere, you can start by reducing your own pace. To do that, you will need to slow down, quiet down. Do not fume. Do not fret. Practice being peaceful. Practice the peace of God which passeth all understanding, from the book of Philippians chapter 4, verse 7. Then note the quiet power sense that wells up within you. A friend of mine who was compelled to take an enforced rest as a result of pressure wrote me, "Many lessons have been learned during this enforced retreat. Now I know better than before that in the quiet we become aware of his presence. Life can get muddled, but muddied water, says Lao Tse, let stand, will become clear." A physician gave some rather whimsical advice to a patient, an aggressive go-getter type of businessman. Excitedly, he told the doctor what an enormous amount of work he had to do, and that he had to get it done right away, quick, or else. "I take my briefcase home every night, and it's packed with work," he said with nervous inflection. "Why do you take work home with you at night?" the doctor asked quietly. "I have to get it done," he fumed. "Cannot someone else do it, or help you with it?" asked the doctor. "No," the man snapped. "I'm the only one who can do it. It must be done just right, and I alone can do it as it must be done, and it has to be done quickly. Everything depends upon me." "If I write you a prescription, will you follow it?" asked the doctor. This, believe it or not, was the prescription. His patient was to take off 2 hours every working day and go for a long walk. Then he was to take off a half a day a week and spend that half day in a cemetery. In astonishment, the patient demanded, "Why should I spend a half day in a cemetery?" "Because," answered the doctor, "I want you to wander around and look at the gravestones of men who are there permanently. I want you to meditate on the fact that many of them are there because they thought, even as you do, that the whole world rested on their shoulders. Meditate on the solemn fact that when you get there permanently, the world will go on just the same, and, as important as you are, others will be able to do the work you are now doing. I suggest that you sit on one of those tombstones and repeat this statement. 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday when it is past, and as a watch in the night." From the book of Psalm 90, verse 4. The patient got the idea. He slowed his pace. He learned to delegate authority. He achieved a proper sense of his own importance. He stopped fuming and fretting. He got peaceful. And, it might be added, he does better work. He is developing a more competent organization, and he admits that his business is in better condition. A prominent manufacturer was afflicted with tension. In fact, he was in a very high-strung frame of mind. As he himself described it, he leapt out of bed every morning and immediately got himself into high gear. He was in such a rush and thither that he made his breakfast on soft-boiled eggs because they had slid down fast. This hectic pace left him fagged and worn at about midday. He sank into bed every night, exhausted. It so happens that his home is situated in a grove of trees. Very early one morning, unable to sleep, he arose and sat by the window. He became interested in watching a bird emerge from his night's sleep. He noticed that a bird sleeps with his head under his wing. The feathers pulled all around himself. When he awakened, he pulled his bill out from under his feathers, took a sleepy look around, stretched one leg to its full length, meanwhile stretching the wing over the leg until it spread out like a fan. He pulled the leg and wing back and then repeated the same process with the other leg and wing, whereupon he put his head down in his feathers again for a delicious little cat nap, only in this case a bird nap. Then the head came out again. This time the bird looked around eagerly, threw his head back, gave his wings and legs 2 more big stretches. Then he sent up a song, a thrilling, melodic song of praise to the day, wherewith he hopped down off the limb, got himself a drink of cold water, and started looking for food. My high-strung friend said to himself, if that's the way the birds get up, sort of slow and easy, why wouldn't it be a good method for me to start the day that way? He actually went through the same performance, even to singing, and noticed that the song was an especially beneficial factor, that it was a releasing mechanism. I can't sing, he chuckled, but I practiced sitting quietly in a chair and singing. Mostly I sang hymns and happy songs. Imagine me singing, but I did. My wife thought I was bereft of my senses. The only thing I had on the bird was that I did a little praying, too. Then, like the bird, I felt like some food, and I wanted a good breakfast, bacon and eggs. And I took my time eating it. After that, I went to work in a released frame of mind. It surely did start me off for the day, minus the tension, and it helped me go through the day in a peaceful and relaxed manner. A former member of a championship university crew told me that their shrewd crew coach often reminded them to win this or any race, row slowly. He pointed out that rapid rowing tends to break the stroke, and when the stroke is broken, it is with the greatest difficulty that a crew recovers the rhythm necessary to win. Meanwhile, other crews pass the disorganized group. It is indeed wise advice to go fast, row slowly. In order to row slowly or to work slowly and maintain the steady pace that wins, the victim of high tempo will do well to get the coordinating peace of God into his mind, his soul, and it might be added into his nerves and muscles also. Have you ever considered the importance of having the peace of God in your muscles, in your joints? Perhaps your joints will not pain so much when they have the peace of God in them. Your muscles will work with correlation when the peace of God, who created them, governs their action. Speak to your muscles every day, and to your joints, and to your nerves, saying, "Fret not thyself," from Psalm 37, verse 1. Relax on a couch or bed, think of each important muscle from head to feet, and say to each, "The peace of God is touching you." Then practice feeling that peace throughout your entire body. In due course, your muscles and joints will take heed. Slow down. For whatever you really want will be there when you get there if you work toward it without stress, without pressing. If proceeding under God's guidance and in His smooth and unhurried tempo, it is not there, then it was not supposed to be there. If you miss it, perhaps you should have missed it. So definitely seek to develop a normal, natural, God-ordered peace. Practice and preserve mental quiet. Learn the art of letting go all nervous excitement. To do this, stop at intervals and affirm, "I now relinquish nervous excitement. It is flowing from me. I am at peace." Do not fume, do not fret. practice being peaceful. To attain this efficient state of living, I recommend the practice of thinking peaceful thoughts. Every day, we perform a series of acts designed to care for the body properly. We bathe, brush the teeth, take exercise. In similar fashion, we should give time and planned effort to keeping the mind in a healthy state. One way to do this is to sit quietly and pass a series of peaceful thoughts through the mind. For example, pass through the thoughts the memory of a lofty mountain, a misty valley, a sun-speckled trout stream, silver moonlight on water. At least once in every 24 hours, preferably in the busiest part of the day, deliberately stop whatever you're doing for 10 or 15 minutes and practice serenity. There are times when it is essential resolutely to check our headlong pace, and it must be emphasized that the only way to stop is to stop. I went to a certain city on a lecture date and was met at the train by a committee. I was rushed to a bookstore where I had an autographing party, and then to another bookstore where another autographing party was held. Then they rushed me to a luncheon. After rushing through the luncheon, I was rushed to a meeting. After the meeting, I was rushed back to the hotel where I changed my clothes and was rushed to a reception where I met several hundred people and drank 3 glasses of fruit punch. Then I was rushed back to the hotel and told that I had 20 minutes to dress for dinner. When I was getting dressed, the telephone rang and somebody said, "Hurry, hurry, we must rush down to dinner." Excitedly, I chattered, "I will rush right down." I rushed from the room and was so excited that I could scarcely get the key into the lock. Hastily, I felt myself to be sure that I was completely dressed and rushed toward the elevator. All of a sudden, I stopped. I was out of breath. I asked myself, what is this all about? What is the meaning of this ceaseless rush? This is ridiculous. Then I declared independence and said, I do not care if I go to dinner. I do not care whether I make a talk. I do not have to go to this dinner and I do not have to make a speech. So deliberately and slowly, I walked back to my room and took my time about unlocking the door. I telephoned the man downstairs and said, if you want to eat, go ahead. If you want to save a place for me, I will be down after a while, but I'm not going to rush anymore. So I removed my coat, sat down, took off my shoes, put my feet up on the table and just sat. Then I opened the Bible and very slowly read aloud the 121st Psalm. I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. I closed the book and had a little talk with myself, saying, come on now, start living a slower and more relaxed life. And then I affirmed, God is here and his peace is touching me. I do not need anything to eat, I reasoned. I eat too much anyway. Besides, the dinner will probably not be very good, and if I'm quiet now, I will give a better speech at 8 o'clock. So I sat there resting and praying for 15 minutes. I shall never forget the sense of peace and personal mastery I had when I walked out of that room. I had the glorious feeling of having overcome something, of having taken control of myself emotionally. And when I reached the dining room, the others had just finished the first course. All I missed was the soup, which by general consent was not great loss. This incident was an amazing experience of the healing presence of God. I gained these values by simply stopping, by quietly reading the Bible, by sincerely praying, and by thinking some peaceful thoughts for a few moments. Physicians generally seem to feel that much physical trouble could be avoided or overcome by practicing the philosophy and methodology of not fuming or fretting. A prominent citizen of New York told me that his doctor suggested that he come to our clinic at the church because, said his physician, you need to develop a calm philosophy of living. Your power resources are played out. My doctor says I am pushing myself to the limit. He tells me I'm too tense, too high-strung, that I fume and fret too much, and, he concluded, my doctor declares the only sure cure is to develop what he calls a calm philosophy of living. My visitor arose and paced the floor, then demanded, "But how in the world can I do that? It's a lot easier said than done." Then this excited gentleman went on to say that his doctor had given him certain suggestions for developing this calm philosophy of living. The suggestions, as outlined, were indeed wise. But then he explained, "The doctor suggested that I see you people here at the church, for he feels that if I learn to use religious faith in a practical manner, it will give me peace of mind and bring down my blood pressure. Then I will feel better physically." "Well, I realize the doctor's prescription is sensible," he complained. "How can a man 50 years old, of a high-strung nature such as mine, suddenly change the habits of a lifetime and develop this so-called calm philosophy of living?" That did indeed seem to be a problem, for he was a bundle of excitable and explosive nerves. That did indeed seem to be a problem, for he was a bundle of excitable and explosive nerves. He paced the floor, he thumped the table, his voice was high-pitched. He gave the impression of a thoroughly disturbed and baffled man. Obviously, he was showing up at his worst, but he was clearly revealing the inner state of his personality. And the insight thus gained gave us a chance to help him through understanding him better. As I listened to his words and observed his attitude, I again understood why Jesus Christ retains his remarkable hold on men. It is because he has the answer to such problems as this, and I proved that fact by suddenly changing the line of the conversation. Without any introductory words, I began to recite certain Bible texts such as, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and the heavy laden, and I will give you rest," from the book of Matthew chapter 11, verse 28. And again, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid," from the book of John chapter 14, verse 27. And still again, "Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee," from the book of Isaiah chapter 26, verse 3. I recited these words slowly, deliberately, reflectively. As this reciting went on, I noticed that my visitor stopped being agitated. Quietness came over him, and then we both sat in silence. It seemed that we sat so for several minutes. Perhaps it wasn't that long, but finally he took a deep breath. "Why, that's funny," he said. "I feel a lot better. Isn't that queer? I guess it was those words that did it." "No, not the words alone," I answered, "though they do have a remarkable effect upon the mind, but something deeper happened just then. He touched you a minute ago, the physician with the healing touch. He was present in this room." My visitor evidenced no surprise at this assertion, but eagerly and impetuously agreed, and conviction was written on his face. "That's right, he sure was. I felt him. I see what you mean. Now I understand. Jesus Christ will help me develop a calm philosophy of living." This man found what increasing thousands are presently discovering, that a simple faith in and practice of the principles and techniques of Christianity bring peace and quietness and therefore new power to body, mind, and spirit. It is the perfect antidote to fuming and to fretting. It helps a person to become peaceful and thus to tap new resources of strength. Of course, it was necessary to teach this man a new pattern of thinking and acting. This was done in part by suggesting literature written by experts in the field of spiritual culture. For example, we gave him lessons in the skill of church-going. We showed him how to make church worship a therapy. He was instructed to the scientific use of prayer and relaxation. And as a result of this practice, eventually, he became a healthy man. Anyone willing to follow this program and sincerely put these principles into day-by-day practice can, I believe, develop inner peace and power. Many of these techniques are outlined in this book. In attaining emotional control, the daily practice of healing techniques is of first importance. Emotional control cannot be gained in any magical or easy way. You cannot develop it by merely reading a book, although that is often helpful. The only sure method is by working at it regularly, persistently, scientifically, and by developing creative faith. I suggest that you begin with such a primary procedure as simply the practice of keeping physically still. Don't pace the floor. Don't wring your hands. Don't pound or shout or argue or walk up and down. Don't let yourself get worked up into a dither. In excitement, one's physical movements become accentuated. Therefore, begin at the simplest place, That is by ceasing physical movement. Stand still, sit down, lie down. Certainly keep the voice down to a low pitch. In developing a calm control, it is necessary to think calmness, for the body responds sensitively to the type of thoughts that pass through the mind. It is also true that the mind can be quieted by first making the body quiet. That is to say, a physical attitude can induce desired mental attitudes. In a speech I related the following incident which occurred in a committee meeting I attended. A gentleman who heard me tell this story was greatly impressed by it and took its truth to heart. He tried the technique suggested and reports that it has been very effective in controlling his fuming and fretting. I was in a meeting where a discussion was going on which finally became rather bitter. Tempers were becoming frayed and some of the participants were decidedly on edge. Sharp remarks were passed. Suddenly, one man arose, deliberately took off his coat, opened his collar, and lay down upon a couch. All were astonished, and someone asked if he felt ill. "No," he said, "I feel fine, but I'm beginning to get mad, and I've learned that it is difficult to get mad lying down." We all laughed, and the tension was broken. Then our whimsical friend went on to explain that he had tried a little trick with himself. He had a quick temper, and when he felt himself getting mad, he found that he was clenching his fist and raising his voice. So he deliberately extended his fingers, not allowing them to form into a fist. In proportion to the raising of his tension or anger, he depressed his voice and talked in exaggerated low tones. "You cannot carry on an argument in a whisper," he said with a grin. This principle can be effective in controlling emotional excitements, fretting and tension, as many have discovered by experimentation. A beginning step, therefore, in achieving calmness is to discipline your physical reactions. You will be surprised at how quickly this can reduce the heat of your emotions, and when emotional heat is driven off, fuming and fretting subside. You will be amazed at the energy and power you will save. You will be much less tired. It is, moreover, a good procedure to practice being phlegmatic or apathetic, even indifferent. To a certain extent, even practice being sluggish. People thus constituted are less likely to emotional breaks. Highly organized individuals may do well to cultivate these reactions to a degree at least. Naturally, one does not want to lose the keen, sensitive responsiveness characteristic of highly organized individual, but the practice of being phlegmatic tends to bring such a keyed-up personality to a balanced emotional position. Following is a technique consisting of 6 points, which I have personally found of great helpfulness in reducing the tendency to fume and fret. I have suggested its use to countless people who practice it and find it of great value. 1. Sit relaxed in a chair. Completely yield yourself to the chair. Starting with your toes and proceeding to the top of your head, conceive of every portion of the body as relaxing. Affirm relaxation by saying, "My toes are relaxed, my fingers, my facial muscles." 2. Think of your mind as the surface of a lake in a storm, tossed by waves and in tumult. But now the waves subside, and the surface of the lake is placid and unruffled. 3. Spend 2 or 3 minutes thinking of the most beautiful and peaceful scenes you have ever beheld, as for example, a mountain at sunset, or a deep valley filled with the hush of early morning, or woods at noonday, or moonlight upon rippling waters. In memory, relive these scenes. 4. Repeat slowly, quietly, bringing out the melody in each, a series of words which express quietness and peace, as for example, tranquility. Say it very deliberately and in a tranquil manner. Serenity, quietness. Think of other such words and repeat them. 5. Make a mental list of times in your life when you have been conscious of God's watchful care and recall how, when you were worried and anxious, He brought things out right and took care of you. Then recite aloud this line from an old hymn. So long thy power hath kept me, sure it still will lead me on. 6. Repeat the following, which has an amazing power to relax and quiet the mind. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. From the book of Isaiah, chapter 26, verse 3. Repeat this several times during the day. Whenever you have a fraction of a moment, repeat it out loud if possible, so that by the end of the day, you will have said it many times. Conceive of these words as active, vital substances permeating your mind, sending into every area of your thinking a healing balm. This is the best known medicine for taking tension from the mind. As you work with the techniques suggested in this chapter, the tendency to fume and fret will gradually be modified. In direct proportion to your progress, the power heretofore drawn off by this unhappy habit will be felt in your increased ability to meet life's responsibilities. End of chapter. Chapter 7. Expect the best and get it. Why does my boy fail in every job he gets? Asked puzzled father about his 30-year-old son. It was indeed difficult to understand the failure of this young man, for seemingly he had everything. Of good family, his educational and business opportunities were beyond the average. Nevertheless, he had a tragic flair for failure. Everything he touched went wrong. He tried hard enough, yet somehow he missed success. Presently, he found an answer, a curiously simple but potent answer. After practicing this newfound secret for a while, he lost the flair for failure and acquired the touch of success. His personality began to focus, his powers to fuse. Not long ago at luncheon, I could not help admiring this dynamic man at the height of his power. "You amaze me," I commented. "A few years ago you were failing at everything. Now you have worked up an original idea into a fine business. You are a leader in your community. Please explain this remarkable change in you." "Really, it was quite simple," he replied. "I merely learned the magic of believing. I discovered that if you expect the worst, you will get the worst. And if you expect the best, you will get the best. It all happened through actually practicing a verse from the Bible." "And what is that verse?" "If thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth." From the book of Mark, chapter 9, verse 23. "I was brought up in a religious home," he explained, "and heard that verse many times, but it never had any effect upon me. One day, in your church, I heard you emphasize those words in a talk. In a flash of insight, I realized that the key I had missed was that my mind was not trained to believe, to think positively, to have faith in either God or myself. I followed your suggestion of putting myself in God's hands and practiced your outlined techniques of faith. I trained myself to think positively about everything. Along with that, I try to live right." He smiled and said, "God and I struck up a partnership. When I adopted that policy, things began to change almost at once for me. I got into the habit of expecting the best, not the worst, and that is the way my affairs have turned out lately." "I guess it's a kind of miracle, isn't it?" he asked as he concluded his fascinating story. But it wasn't miraculous at all. Actually, what had happened was that he had learned to use one of the most powerful laws in the world, a law recognized alike by psychology and religion, namely, change your mental habits to belief instead of disbelief. Learn to expect, not to doubt. In so doing, you bring everything into the realm of possibility. This does not mean that by believing you are necessarily going to get everything you want or think you want. Perhaps that would not be good for you. When you put your trust in God, He guides your mind so that you do not want things that are not good for you or that are inharmonious with God's will. But it does definitely mean that when you learn to believe, then that which has seemingly been impossible moves into the area of the possible. Every great thing at last becomes, for you, a possibility. William James, the famous psychologist, said, "Our belief at the beginning of a doubtful undertaking is the one thing, now get that, is the one thing, that ensures the successful outcome of your venture." To learn to believe is of primary importance. It is the basic factor of succeeding in any undertaking. When you expect the best, you release a magnetic force in your mind, which by a law of attraction tends to bring the best to you. But if you expect the worst, you release from your mind the power of repulsion, which tends to force the best from you. It is amazing how a sustained expectation of the best sets in motion forces which cause the best to materialize. An interesting illustration of this fact was described some years ago by Hugh Fullerton, a famous sports writer for a bygone era. As a boy, Hugh Fullerton was my favorite writer of sports stories. One story which I have never forgotten concerned Josh O'Reilly, one-time manager of the San Antonio club of the Texas League. O'Reilly had a roster of great players, 7 of whom had been hitting over 300, and everybody thought his team would easily take the championship. But the club fell into a slump and lost 17 of the first 20 games. The players simply couldn't hit anything, and each began to accuse the other of being a jinx to the team. Playing the Dallas club, a rather poor team that year, only one San Antonio player got a hit, and that, strangely enough, was the pitcher. O'Reilly's team was badly beaten that day. In the clubhouse after the game, the players were a disconsolate lot. Josh O'Reilly knew that he had an aggregation of stars, and he realized that their trouble was simply that they were thinking wrong. They didn't expect to get a hit. They didn't expect to win. They expected to be defeated. They were thinking not victory, but defeat. Their mental pattern was not one of expectation, but of doubt. This negative mental process inhibited them, froze their muscles, threw them off their timing, and there was no free flow of easy power through the team. It so happened that a preacher named Sclater was popular in that neighborhood at the time. He claimed to be a faith healer and apparently was getting some astounding results. Throngs crowded to hear him, and most everybody had confidence in him. Perhaps the fact that they did believe in his power enabled Sclater to achieve results. O'Reilly asked each player to lend him his 2 best bats. Then he asked the members of the team to stay in the clubhouse until he returned. He put the bats in a wheelbarrow and went off with them. He was gone for an hour. He returned jubilantly to tell the players that Sclater, the preacher, had blessed the bats and that these bats now contained a power that could not be overcome. The players were astounded and delighted. The next day, they overwhelmed Dallas, getting 37 base hits and 20 runs. They hammered their way through the league to a championship, and Hugh Fullerton said that for years in the Southwest, a player would pay a large sum for a Sclater bat. Regardless of Sclater's personal power, the fact remains that something tremendous happened in the minds of those ball players. Their thought pattern was changed. They began thinking in terms of expectation, not doubt. They expected not the worst, but the best. They expected hits, runs, victories, and they got them. They had the power to get what they wanted. There was no difference in the bats themselves. I'm quite sure of that. But there was certainly a difference in the minds of the men who used them. Now they knew they could make hits. Now they knew they could get runs. Now they knew they could win. A new thought pattern changed the minds of those men so that the creative power of faith could operate. Perhaps you have not been doing so well in the game of life. Perhaps you stand up to bat and cannot make a hit. You strike out time and again, and your batting average is lamentably low. Let me give you a suggestion. I guarantee that it will work. The basis for my assurance is the fact that thousands of people have been trying it with very great results. Things will be very different for you if you give this method a real trial. Start reading the New Testament and notice the number of times it refers to faith. Select a dozen of the strongest statements about faith, the ones that you like the best. Then memorize each one. Let these faith concepts drop into your conscious mind. Say them over and over again, especially just before going to sleep at night. By a process of spiritual osmosis, they will sink from your conscience into your subconscious mind, and in time will modify and reslant your basic thought pattern. This process will change you into a believer, into an expector, and when you become such, you will in due course become an achiever. You will have new power to get what God and you decide you really want from life. The most powerful force in human nature is the spiritual power technique taught in the Bible. Very astutely, the Bible emphasizes the method by which a person can make something of himself. Faith, belief, positive thinking, faith in God, faith in other people, faith in yourself, faith in life. This is the essence of the technique that teaches, if thou canst believe, it says, all things are possible to him that believeth. From the book of Mark, chapter 9, verse 23. If ye have faith, nothing shall be impossible unto you. From the book of Matthew, chapter 17, verse 20. According to your faith, be it unto you. From the book of Matthew, chapter 9, verse 29. Believe. Believe so it drives home the truth that faith moves mountains. Some skeptical person who has never learned this powerful law of the effect of right thinking may doubt my assertions regarding the amazing results which happen when this technique is employed. Things become better when you expect the best instead of the worst, for the reason that being freed from self-doubt, you can put your whole self into your endeavor, and nothing can stand in the way of the man who focuses his entire self on a problem. When you approach a difficulty as a personal unity, the difficulty with itself is a demonstration of disunity, tends to deteriorate. When the entire concentration of all force, physical, emotional, and spiritual is brought to bear, the consolidation of these powers properly employed is quite irresistible. Expecting the best means that you put your whole heart, the central essence of your personality, into what you want to accomplish. People are defeated in life not because of lack of ability, but for lack of wholeheartedness. They do not wholeheartedly expect to succeed. Their heart isn't in it, which is to say they themselves are not fully given. Results do not yield themselves to the person who refuses to give himself to the desired results. A major key to success in this life, to attaining that which you deeply desire, is to be completely released and throw all there is of yourself into your job or any project in which you are engaged. In other words, whatever you're doing, give it all you've got. Give every bit of yourself. Hold nothing back. Life cannot deny itself to the person who gives life his all. But most people, unfortunately, don't do that. In fact, very few people do. And this is a tragic cause of failure, or, if not failure, it is the reason we only half attain. A famous Canadian athletic coach, Ace Percival, says that most people, athletes as well as non-athletes, are holdouts. That is to say, they are always keeping something in reserve. They do not invest themselves 100% in competition. Because of that fact, they never achieve the highest of which they are capable. Red Barber, famous baseball announcer, told me that he had known few athletes who completely give themselves. Don't be a holdout. Go all out. Do this, and life will not hold out on you. A famous trapeze artist was instructing his students how to perform on the high trapeze bar. Finally, having given full explanations and instruction in this skill, he told them to demonstrate their ability. One student, looking up at the insecure perch upon which he must perform, was suddenly filled with fear. He froze completely. He had a terrifying vision of himself falling to the ground. He couldn't move a muscle. So deep was his fright. "I can't do it. I can't do it," he gasped. The instructor put his arm around the boy's shoulder and said, "Son, you can do it, and I will tell you how." Then he made a statement which is of inestimable importance. It is one of the wisest remarks I have ever heard. He said, "Throw your heart over the bar, and your body will follow." Copy that one sentence, write it on a card, and put it in your pocket. Place it under the glass on your desktop, tack it up on your wall, stick it in your shaving mirror. Better still, write it on your mind. You who really want to do something with life. It's packed with power, that sentence. Throw your heart over the bar, and your body will follow. Heart is the symbol of creative activity. Fire the heart with where you want to go and what you want to be. Get it so deeply fixed in your unconscious that you will not take no for an answer. Then your entire personality will follow where your heart leads. Throw your heart over the bar means to throw your faith over your difficulty, throw your affirmation over every barrier, throw your visualization over your obstacles. In other words, Throw the spiritual essence of you over the bar, and your material self will follow in the victory groove, thus pioneered by your faith-inspired mind. Expect the best, not the worst, and you will attain your heart's desire. It is what it is in the heart of you, either good or bad, strong or weak, that finally comes to you. Emerson said, "Beware of what you want, for you will get it." That this philosophy is of practical value is illustrated by the experience of a young woman whom I interviewed a number of years ago. She made an appointment to see me in my office at 2 o'clock on a certain afternoon. Being quite busy that day, I had gone a little behind schedule, and it was about 5 minutes after 2 when I walked into the conference room where she was waiting. It was obvious that she was displeased, for her lips were pressed firmly together. "It's 5 minutes after 2, and we had an appointment at 2 p.m., she said. "I always admire promptness." "So do I. I always believe in being prompt, and I hope you will forgive me for my unavoidable delay," I said with a smile. But she was not in a smiling mood, for she said crisply, "I have a very important problem to present to you, and I want an answer, and I expect an answer." Then she shot out at me, "I might as well put it to you bluntly. I want to get married." "Well," I replied, "that is a perfectly normal desire, and I should like to help you." "I want to know why I can't get married," she continued. "Every time I form a friendship with a man, the next thing I know he fades out of the picture and another chance has gone by. And," she added, speaking frankly, "I'm not getting any younger. You conduct a personal problem clinic to study people, and you have had some experience, and I'm putting my problem right up to you. Tell me, why can't I get married?" I studied her to see if she was the kind of person to whom one could speak frankly, for certain things had to be said if she really meant business. Finally, I decided that she was of big enough caliber to take the medicine that would be required if she was to correct her personality difficulties. So I said, "Well, now, let's analyze the situation. Obviously, you have a good mind and a fine personality, and if I may say so, you are a very handsome lady." All of these things were true. I congratulated her in every way that I honestly could, but then I said, "I think that I see your difficulty, and it is this. You took me to task because I was 5 minutes late for an appointment. You were really quite severe with me. Has it ever occurred to you that your attitude represents a pretty serious fault? I think a husband would have a very difficult time if you checked him up that closely all the time. In fact, you would so dominate him that even if you did marry, your marital life would be unsatisfactory. Love cannot live under domination." Then I said, "You have a very firm way of pressing your lips together, which indicates a domineering attitude. The average male, I might as well tell you, does not like to be dominated, at least so that he knows it." Then I added, "I think you would be a very attractive person if you got those 2 firm lines out of your face. You must have a little softness, a little tenderness, and those lines are too firm to be soft." Then I observed her dress, which was obviously quite expensive, but she didn't wear it very well, and so I said, "This may be a bit out of my line, and I hope you won't mind, but perhaps you could get that dress to hang a little better." I know my description was awkward, but she was a good sport about it and laughed right out loud. She said, "You certainly don't use style phraseology, but I get the idea." Then I suggested, "Perhaps it might help to get your hair fixed up a little. It's a little floaty. Then you might also add a little sweet-smelling perfume, just a whiff of it. But the really important thing is to get a new attitude that will change the lines on your face and give you that indefinable quality known as spiritual joy. This I am certain will release charm and loveliness in you." "Well," she burst out, "never did I expect to get this combination of advice in a minister's office." "No," I chuckled, "I suppose not, but nowadays we have to cover the whole field in a human problem." Then I told her about an old professor of mine at Ohio Wesleyan University, Royally Walker, who said, "God runs a beauty parlor." He explained that some girls, when they came to college, were very pretty, but when they came back to visit the campus 30 years later, their beauty had faded. The moonlight and roses loveliness of their youth did not last. On the other hand, other girls came to college who were very plain, but when they returned 30 years later, they were beautiful women. What made the difference? He asked. The latter had the beauty of an inner spiritual life written on their faces, and then he added, God runs a beauty parlor. Well, this young lady thought about what I told her for a few minutes, and then she said, There's a lot of truth in what you say. I'll try it. Here's where her strong personality proved effective, for she did try it. A number of years went by, and I had forgotten her. Then in a certain city, after making a speech, a very lovely-looking lady with a fine-looking man and a little boy about 10 years of age came up to me. The lady asked smilingly, Well, how do you think it hangs? How do I think what hangs? I asked, puzzled. My dress, she said. Do you think it hangs right? Bewildered, I said, Yes, I think it hangs all right, but just why do you ask? Don't you know me? She asked. I see a great many people in my life. I said, frankly, no, I don't think I have never seen you before. Then she reminded me of our talk of years ago, which I have described. Meet my husband and my little boy. What you told me was absolutely true, she said very earnestly. I was the most frustrated, unhappy individual imaginable when I came to see you, but I put into practice the principles you suggested. I really did, and they worked. Her husband then spoke up and said, There was never a sweeter person in the world than Mary here, and I must say that she looked the part. She had evidently visited God's beauty parlor. Not only did she experience the softening and mellowing of her inner spirit, but she properly used a great quality which she possessed, namely, the driving force to get what she wanted. This led her to the point where she was willing to change herself so that her dreams could be realized. She had that quality of mind where she took herself in hand. She applied the spiritual techniques, and she had a profound and yet simple faith that what her heart told her she wanted could be obtained by the proper creative and positive procedures. So the formula is to know what you want, test it to see if it is a right thing, change yourself in such a manner that it will naturally come to you, and always have faith. With the creative force of belief, you stimulate the particular gathering together of circumstances which brings your cherished wish to pass. Students of modern dynamic thought are realizing more and more the practical value of the ideas and teachings of Jesus, especially such truths as the dictum, according to your faith be it unto you, from the book of Matthew chapter 9 verse 29. According to your faith in yourself, according to your faith in your job, according to your faith in God, this far will you get, and no further. If you believe in your job and in yourself and in the opportunities of your country, and if you believe in God and will work hard and study and put yourself into it, in other words, if you throw your heart over the bar, you can swing up to any high place to which you want to take your life and your service and your achievement. Whenever you have a bar, that is to say a barrier in front of you, stop, close your eyes, visualize everything that is above the bar and nothing that is below it. Then imaginatively throw your heart over that bar and see yourself as being given lifting power to rise above it. Believe that you are experiencing this upthrust of force. You will be amazed at the lifting force you will receive if in the depth of your mind you realize the best and employ the powers of faith and energy. You will get the best. Naturally, in this process of achieving the best, it is important to know where you want to go in life. You can reach your goal. Your best dreams can come true. You can get where you want to go only if you know what your goal is. Your expectation must have a clearly defined objective. Lots of people get nowhere simply because they do not know where they want to go. They have no clear-cut, precisely defined purpose. You cannot expect the best if you think aimlessly. A young man of 26 consulted me because he was dissatisfied with his job. He was ambitious to fill a bigger niche in life and wanted to know how to improve his circumstances. His motive seemed unselfish and entirely worthwhile. Well, where do you want to go? I asked. I just know exactly, he said hesitantly. I have never given any thought. I only know I want to go somewhere other than where I am. What can you do best? I then asked. What are your strong points? I don't know, he responded. I never thought that over either. But What would you like to do if you had your choice? What do you really want to do? I insisted. I just can't say, he replied dully. I don't really know what I would like to do. I never thought it over. Guess I ought to figure that one out too. Now look here, I said. You want to go somewhere from where you are, but you don't know where you want to go. You don't know what you can do or what you would like to do. You will have to get your ideas organized before you can expect to start getting anywhere. That is the failure point with many people. They never get anywhere because they have only a hazy idea where they want to go, what they want to do. No objective leads to no end. We made a thorough analysis testing this young man's capabilities and found some assets of personality he did not know he possessed, but it was necessary to supply a dynamic to move him forward. So we taught him the techniques of practical faith. Today, he is on the way to achievement. Now he knows where he wants to go and how to get there. He knows what the best is and he expects to attain it, and he will. Nothing can stop him. I asked an outstanding newspaper editor and inspiring personality, how did you get to be the editor of this important paper? I wanted to be, he replied simply. Is that all there is to it? I asked. You wanted to be, and so there you are? Well, that may not be all of it, but that was a large part of the process, he explained. I believe that if you want to get somewhere, you must decide definitely where you want to be or what you want to accomplish. Be sure it is the right objective. Then photograph this objective on your mind and hold it there. Work hard, believe in it, and the thought will become so powerful that it will tend to assure success. There is a deep tendency, he declared, to become what your mind pictures, provided you hold the mental picture strongly enough and if the objective is sound. So saying, the editor pulled a well-worn card from his wallet and said, I repeat this quotation every day of my life. It has become my dominating thought. I copied it and I'm giving it to you. A man who is self-reliant, positive, optimistic, and undertakes his work with the assurance of success magnetizes his condition. He draws to himself the creative powers of the universe. It is indeed a fact that the person who thinks with positive self-reliance and optimism does magnetize his condition and releases power to attain his goal. So expect the best at all times. Never think of the worst. Drop it out of your thought. Relegate it. Let there be no thought in your mind that the worst will happen. Avoid entertaining the concept of the worst, for whatever you take into your mind can grow there. Therefore, take the best into your mind and only that. Nurture it, concentrate on it, emphasize it, visualize it, prayerize it, surround it with faith. Make it your obsession. Expect the best, and spiritually creative mind power, aided by God power, will produce the best. It may be that as you read this book, you are down to what you think is the worst, and you may remark that no amount of thinking will affect your situation. The answer to that objection is that it simply isn't so. Even if you may be down to the worst, the best is potentially within you. You have only to find it, release it, and rise up with it. This requires courage and character, to be sure, but the main requirement is faith. Cultivate faith, and you will have the necessary courage and character. A woman was compelled by adversity to go into sales work, a type of activity for which she had no training. She undertook to demonstrate vacuum cleaners from house to house. She took a negative attitude toward herself and her work. She just didn't believe she could do this job. She knew she was going to fail. She feared to approach a house even though she came for a requested demonstration. She believed that she could not make the sale. As a result, as is not surprising, she failed in a high percentage of her interviews. One day, she chanced to call upon a woman who evidenced consideration beyond the average. To this customer, the saleswoman poured out her tale of defeat and powerlessness. The other woman listened patiently, then said quietly, "If you expect failure, you will get failure. But if you expect to succeed, I am sure you will succeed." And she added, "I will give you a formula which I believe will help you. It will restyle your thinking, give you new confidence, and help you to accomplish goals. Repeat this formula every call. Believe in it, and then marvel at what it will do for you. This is it. If God be for us, who can be against us?" From the book of Romans chapter 8, verse 31. But change it by personalizing it so that you say, "If God be for me, who can be against me?" If God be for me, then I know that with God's help, I can sell vacuum cleaners. God realizes that you want security and support for your little children and yourself, and by practicing the method I suggest, you will be given power to get what you want. She learned to utilize this formula. She approached each house expecting to make a sale, affirming and picturizing positive, not negative, results. As the saleswoman employed this principle, she presently acquired new courage, new faith, and deeper confidence in her own ability. Now she declares, "God helps me sell vacuum cleaners," and who can dispute it? It is well-defined and authentic principle that what the mind profoundly expects, it tends to receive. Perhaps this is true because what you really expect is what you actually want. Unless you really want something sufficiently to create an atmosphere of positive factors by your dynamic desire, it is likely to elude you. If with all your heart, that is the secret. If with all your heart, that is to say, if the full complement of your personality, you reach out creatively toward your heart's desire, your reach will not be in vain. Let me give you 4 words as a formulation of a great law. Faith power works wonders. Those 4 words are packed with dynamic and creative force. Hold them in your conscious mind. Let them sink into the unconscious, and they can help you to overcome any difficulty. Hold them in your thoughts. Say them over and over again. Say them until your mind accepts them, until you believe them. Faith power works wonders. I have no doubt about the effectiveness of this concept, for I have seen it work so often that my enthusiasm for faith power is absolutely boundless. You can overcome any obstacle. You can achieve the most tremendous things by faith power. And how do you develop faith power? The answer is to saturate your mind with the great words of the Bible. If you will spend 1 hour a day reading the Bible and committing its great passages to memory, thus allowing them to recondition your personality, the change in you and in your experience will be little short of miraculous. Just 1 section of the Bible will accomplish this for you. The 11th chapter of Mark is enough. You will find the secret in the following words, and this is one of the greatest formulas the book contains. Have faith in God. That's positive, isn't it? For verily I say unto you that whosoever shall say unto this mountain, that's specific, be thou removed, that is, stand aside, and be thou cast into the sea, that means out of sight. Anything you threw into the sea is gone for good. The Titanic lies at the bottom of the sea, and the sea bottom is lined with ships. Cast your opposition, called a mountain, into the sea, and shall not doubt in his heart. Why does this statement use the word heart? Because it means you are not to doubt in your subconsciousness, in the inner essence of you. It isn't so superficial as a doubt in the conscious mind. That is a normal, intelligent questioning. It's a deep, fundamental doubt that is to be avoided. But shall believe that those things which he saith shall come to pass. He shall have whatsoever he saith. From the book of Mark chapter 11 verse 22 through 23. This is not some theory that I have thought up. It is taught by the most reliable book known to man. Generation after generation, no matter what develops in the way of knowledge and science, the Bible is read by more people than any other book. Humanity rightly has more confidence in it than any other document ever written, and the Bible tells us that faith power works wonders. The reason, however, that great things do not happen to some people is that they're not specific in their application of faith power. We are told, "You shall say to this mountain." That is to say, do not address your efforts to the entire mountain range of all your difficulties, but attack one thing that may be defeating you at the moment. Be specific, take them one by one. If there is something you want, how do you go about getting it? In the first place, ask yourself, should I want it? Test that question very honestly in prayer to be sure you should want it and whether you should have it. If you can answer that question in the affirmative, then ask God for it and don't be backward in asking Him. And if God, having more insight, believes that you shouldn't have it, you needn't worry, He won't give it to you. But if it is the right thing, ask Him for it. And when you ask, do not doubt in your heart. Be specific. The validity of this law was impressed upon me by something that a friend of mine, a Midwestern businessman, told me. This man is a big, extrovertish, outgoing, lovable gentleman, a truly great Christian. He teaches the largest Bible class in his state. In the town where he lives, he is Mr. Town himself. He is head of a plant employing 40,000 people. His office desk is full of religious literature. He even has some of my sermons and pamphlets there. In his plant, one of the biggest in the United States, he manufactures refrigerators. He is one of those whole-souled, rugged individuals who has the capacity to have faith. He believes that God is right there in his office with him. My friend said, "Preach a big faith, not any little old watered-down faith. Don't be afraid that faith isn't scientific enough. I'm a scientist," he said. "I use science in my business every day, and I use the Bible every day. The Bible will work. Everything in the Bible works if you believe in it." When he was made general manager of this plant, it was whispered around town that Mr. So-and-so is general manager. We'll have to bring our Bibles to work with us. After a few days, he called into his office some of the men who were making this remark. He uses language they understand, and he said, "I hear you guys are going around town saying that now I am general manager. You will have to bring your Bibles to work with you." "Oh, we didn't mean it that way," they said in embarrassment. He said, "Well, you know, that's a blankety-blank good idea, but I don't want you to come lugging them under your arms. Bring them in your hearts and in your minds. If you come with a spirit of goodwill and faith in your hearts and minds, believe me, we'll do business." So he said, "The kind of faith to have is the specific kind, the kind that moves this particular mountain." Suddenly he said to me, "Did you ever have a toe bother you?" I was rather astonished by that, but before I could answer, he said, "I had a toe that bothered me, and I took it to the doctors here in town, and they are wonderful doctors, and they said there wasn't anything wrong with the toe that they could see. But they were wrong, because it hurt. So I went out and got a book on anatomy and read up on toes. It is really a simple construction. There's nothing but a few muscles and ligaments and a bony structure. It seemed that anybody who knows anything about a toe could fix it, but I couldn't get anybody to fix that toe, and it hurt me all the time. So I sat down one day and took a look at that toe. Then I said, 'Lord, I'm sending this toe right back to the plant. You made that toe. I make refrigerators, and I know all there is to know about a refrigerator. When we sell a refrigerator, we guarantee the customer service. If this refrigerator doesn't work right, and if our service agents can't fix it, he brings it back to the plant and we fix it because we know how.' So I said, 'Lord, you made this toe, you manufactured it, and your service agents, the doctors, don't seem to know how to get it working right. And if you don't mind, Lord, I would like to have it fixed up as soon as possible because it's bothering me.'" "How is the toe now?" I asked. "Perfect," he replied. Perhaps this is a foolish kind of story, and I laughed when he told it, But I almost cried too, for I saw a wonderful look on that man's face as he related that incident of a specific prayer. Be specific. Ask God for any right thing, but as a little child, and don't doubt. Doubt closes the power flow. Faith opens it. The power of faith is so tremendous that there is nothing that Almighty God cannot do for us, with us, or through us if we let Him channel His power through our minds. So roll those words around on your tongue. Say them over and over again until they lodge deeply in your mind, until they get down into your heart, until they take possession of the essence of you. Whosoever shall say unto this mountain, Be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, and shall not doubt in his heart, but shall believe that those things which he saith shall come to pass, he shall have whatsoever he saith. From the book of Mark, chapter 11, verse 23. I suggested these principles some months ago to an old friend of mine, a man who perpetually expects the worst. Up to that time of our discussion, never did I hear him say anything other than that things would not turn out right. He took this negative attitude toward every project or problem. He expressed vigorous disbelief in the principles outlined in this chapter and offered to make a test to prove that I am wrong in my conclusions. He is an honest man, and he faithfully tried these principles in connection with several matters and actually kept a scorecard. He did this for 6 months. He volunteered the information at the end of that period that 85% of the matters under investigation had turned out satisfactorily. I am now convinced, he said, although I wouldn't have believed it possible, but it is evidently a fact that if you expect the best, you are given some strange kind of power to create conditions that produce the desired result. From now on, I'm changing my mental attitude and shall expect the best, not the worst. My test indicates that this is not a theory, but a scientific way to meet life's situations. I might add that even the high percentages he attained can be raised with practice, and of course, practice in the art of expectation is as essential as practice on a musical instrument or with a golf club. Nobody ever mastered any skill except through intensive, persistent, and intelligent practice. Also, it should be noted that my friend approached this experiment at first in a spirit of doubt, which would tend adversely to affect his earliest results. Every day, as you comfort the problems of life, I suggest that you affirm as follows: I believe God gives me power to attain what I really want. Never mention the worst. Never think of it. Drop it out of your consciousness at least 10 times every day. Affirm, I expect the best, and with God's help, will attain the best. In so doing, your thoughts will turn toward the best and become conditioned to its realization. This practice will bring all of your powers to focus upon the attainment of the best. It will bring the best to you. End of chapter. Let's head over to the next video where we continue with the book titled The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. In the next video, we're going to learn about how to break the worry habit. A lot of people are worrying over things that are just not even here yet, right? And he's also going to talk about how to solve personal problems and the power behind that. So if you haven't done so yet, please do hit that like button. Share this with someone that you know could benefit from this content. And yes, subscribe to the channel.